think we are here to talk about a very important topic. We all want our money to work well for us, and all of us are curious on how can that happen. So I'm sure today's session with Mr. Babu Krishnamoorthy of Finsherpa Investments is of great interest to each one of us. So we are all looking forward to it. Before I get there, a quick introduction to Silver Talkies and who I am. I am Nidhi. I am the co-founder of Silver Talkies. Today's event is presented and organized by Silver Talkies, and it's sponsored in collaboration with Primus Life Spaces Private Limited. Silver Talkies, as many of you may know already, given that many of you have been coming to our events every now and then, and some of you are members as well. Silver Talkies is a social engagement platform for seniors, where the idea is to create enough opportunities to keep older adults like yourself engaged, stay happy and active, because we very sincerely and very emphatically believe that active aging is the way to go, and it is the most promising form of preventive healthcare. And this is something, which is not just based on theory. I'm sure it's based on observation from our own homes, looking at our own parents, and then having been in this space and working with seniors since 2014. Our journey has totally been an evolving one, and based on learnings on, through interactions that we have with seniors. So, Silver Talkies is a virtual community of older adults. So anybody who's 55 plus is more than welcome to become a part of this community. The idea behind a community format is that, you have a group that you belong to. You have your friends, you have an active social circle, because as we all know, whatever said and done, with age and with families moving away, with children moving away, there is a tendency that, as we grow older, we tend to be left alone, or we have to take care of ourselves better. And why not, right? Because you have worked hard for yourself, for your families, all through your young years. And now is your time to really interact with new people, make new friends, socialize, be active. And that's where the whole idea of Silver Talkies comes from, that you are among your own set of friends. You make these new connections, which are now multi-city, spread all across the country. So we actually have members from 11 different cities currently. And it's a very active and vibrant group that likes to not only just interact with each other, but also be part of various kind of activities, whether it be something as simple as attending a talk like today, to attending a talk on health and wellness, to even learning new hobbies, learning new languages, or so we just finished a Kannada speaking course, and we have had a lot of art workshops. We have classes on yoga, fitness, tai chi, music therapy. So so it's a very diverse portfolio of activities that we bring to our members. So we welcome you to actually explore, check us out. And if this is something which you aspire for, that's your goal as well for your senior years, then we would be really happy to have you on board. And as I said, given it's a virtual community now, you are most welcome to join in from any city. Geographies are no longer a boundary. That's the beauty of being a virtual community. So thank you so much. And just introducing our partner for today, Primus Life Spaces. Today we are joined by Nihas, who would be talking to us in a bit. But Primus Life Spaces was established in the year 2013, and it is a holistic senior living space that caters to senior needs, with a community focused on building an elder-centric ecosystem with passionate caregivers, thorough processes, and state-of-the-art technology to help them deliver bespoke services and conveniences. Their goal is to change the lives of seniors through organized senior care. And their motto that everything you need to live comfortably is available at the push of a button. In fact, Primus, we've had various events like this in the past as well, where we have actually spoken to some of the residents at the Primus, one of their projects in Bangalore called the Primus Reflection, and had a really good interaction. They all had really good feedback to share, and they are all very happy staying where they are now in the second innings of their life. And Primus is growing. It's growing beyond Bangalore. They now have a project in Chennai as well. They have new projects in Bangalore coming up. So Nihas would be telling us a little bit more about that in a bit. And coming to our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Babu Krishnamoorthy, who is an investment consultant. He is the founder and chief Sherpa at Finsherpa Investments Private Limited, a boutique wealth management firm based in Chennai, catering to financial needs of high net worth clients in India and abroad. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and has over 25 years of expertise in areas related to finance and money management. Prior to starting Finsherpa, Babu also co-founded Pelican Wealth, and he was also associated with Alagro Capital, a leading investment banking and wealth management house. And other than just being professionally occupied, he has actually also harnessed all his learnings in the form of a book. He has authored the best-selling book Unlock Secrets to a Wealthy Life, which helps young adults to start their investing journey in a methodical manner. Babu is also an avid reader of non-fiction books and is an amateur marathon runner. So welcome, Babu. We are really looking forward to hearing from you today. And
thank you, Nidhi. I'm going to, hi friends, good evening and wonderful being here. When Nidhi was saying 55 is the year to kind of join this network, I'm still about 4 years away. Hopefully, after that, I will kind of find a way to join such a network. It's very interesting. It's a very needed initiative in terms of connecting with people of a similar profile peer group. So it's wonderful being here. There isn't, let me put things in context. A lot of what I'm going to spend time over the next 20 minutes is something that you may have already heard. I'm merely trying to collate all the information and present it in a manner. So we're going to cover in the next 20-25 minutes three things, and the three things are divided into three neat sections. One is about 10 things that I think elders must take care of. It's very, very important. It's a kind of a financial toolkit for elders, so to say, that people need to take care of. So that's what I'm going to talk about first. And second is something about investment. I'm not going to talk about should you invest in this share or this mutual fund, so on. This is too short a time and it's a large audience. But I'm going to tell three things that to me elders need to keep in mind when they think about investing in this phase of their life. And last is the relevance of a retirement home, right? So we have Nihas who's going to speak further. So I just thought it's imperative to touch upon the need for why one must invest in also a retirement home. But with no more ado, I'm going to jump right in and talk about them. So over the last 20 years, these are entirely my thoughts, friends. So happy to kind of hear from you as well later on. But these are 10 things that I have observed and learned by serving elder clients of mine over the last 20 years. And these are some things that I think is extremely important when we look at managing money. First up, as we are young, we have multiple needs for money and bank accounts and investment accounts and so on and so forth. But as we grow older, these needs may come down. And it's extremely important at some point in time to consolidate these multiple bank accounts into fewer that you can handle, right? I often come across people who have multiple bank accounts and are unable to keep track of what's going on. And more importantly, after their time, their families struggle with a lot of this. So if there are multiple bank accounts, multiple Dmat accounts, multiple investment accounts, you may want to spend some time to think about it and see if you can consolidate this in some form. Close the unused ones, kind of some way make it simpler to handle things. As you grow older, I think it's important to keep things very, very simple. Second is a basic hygiene aspect that I think is very, very important. Very important all through, not just when you're old, but even more important when you're older is to make sure that all investments are held jointly with your spouse or your relatives, so on and so forth. or at least nominations in place in all of them. Friends, just for your information, over 100,000 crores of rupees is lying with the government of India, which forms the bulk of what we call unclaimed investments in dividends. These are monies that have been invested by people like you and me, but have not been claimed back from either a bank or any financial institution that gets transferred to the central government. And that number is 100,000 crores, right? I'm sure you and me don't want to contribute further to that number. So please ensure that you have a co-applicant in your investment, be it a bank account, be it a mutual fund, be it any investment. Make sure that you have a second applicant or at least a nomination in place so that, in case of a need to change, it's quite easy to kind of make that change happen. The third thing I think very, very important is that uh, one of the things which I've often noticed, and truth be told, uh, when you're much younger, you want to kind of look at a retired life at some point and say, why don't I have a life that's easygoing? And as you retire, sometimes we become very, very financially, insecure, and that's not the purpose, right? So as you grow older, you must enjoy life. You must enjoy the twilight, this thing with calmness and with friendship. Somewhere this financial aspect tends to kind of unnerve a lot of senior citizens, and which is why I think it's important to create a small record, and sometimes putting things on paper kind of calms your mind, and I've often found this works for a lot of my clients. So create a statement of all your investments and then evaluate against your financial needs so that you know for sure that your cash flow needs are well provided for. As long as you keep doing this, you don't need to do this often, say once a year, once in 2 years, to create the statement. And as long as in your mind you're assured of things, it will keep you kind of less anxious about money aspect. And the fourth aspect which I want to kind of dwell on is you must at least once a year review your investments, how they are performing, be it stocks, especially stocks and mutual funds go through a lot of ups and downs. I'm not saying that you should look at it often. You don't need to look at it every morning, but at least once a year, ideally every 6 months, if you're able to look at it, take out those, get out of those which are not performing well. It's very simple. You don't need to be a investment guru to do that, and put it into stuff which is doing reasonably well, and kind of keep doing that exercise every 6 months. Over a period of time, you would have accumulated a reasonably good performing portfolio. So I think that's also important. As you grow older, why I certainly don't want you to spend more time in looking at your portfolio. I do think you should also not fill it, shut it, forget it, right? So you need to kind of review it at least once or twice a year, and that would be a great way to kind of keep things in check so that it's working for you. Also, make sure that there is enough money across all the avenues, all the assets. So we find a lot of people as they grow older tend to keep money into real estate. It's a good place. I have nothing against real estate. The only problem is that real estate sometimes suffers from illiquidity. So when you actually need the money, you are unable to sell, or so on and so forth. So somewhere, if you have a little bit of money across various assets, and it need not be equal. It need not be, let's say real estate, equity, debt, gold, etc. All these assets. I don't think it needs to be equal amount. You can have your favorite asset. If you think real estate is work for you, have more in real estate. But all I'm trying to say is keep a check on how much you have where, and enough money is available across so that you have a diversity. And one of the ways in which all of us can, handle risk of any asset going up or going down too quickly is by diversifying it adequately. So keep enough money in different asset classes, be it stock, be it FD, be it bank deposits, be it real estate, some in gold, so that overall the whole scheme works in your interest. The sixth point which I want to discuss is that often I come across cases that the spouse of the person who is the investor comes back to us and says, Babu, after the person is no more, that they don't know anything, right? They have no idea what is investment. So we strongly urge elders to share these information with their spouse or their partner so that everybody is in sync. I don't think you need to do this very often. That once a year, when you take that, kind of an audit of your investments, that sheet you can spend time. And I know many a cases, many partners or spouses aren't interested in these, right? But it's equally important to just spend that 15, 20 minutes to understand where these investments are made so that if needed, you have access to them. Especially, I know cases where the husband has got into a COVID situation, he's in the hospital, money is needed, wife doesn't have access to his cards or his bank account and so on and so forth. They went through a little bit of a pickle in terms of generating. Although investments were large, the wife didn't know about all the details. So it makes sense to kind of make sure that this information is shared with your spouse so that both are aware of these investments. These are very, very simple hygiene factors, my friend, but very, very, if you don't have these, it becomes a little bit of an issue. And of course, we are in pandemic time. Like I said, it's always good to have somewhere cash that you can access in short notice. It need not be lying around as cash, but in a short-term FD in a bank or something like that, where you can access if you need emergency. Of course, most senior citizens seem to do this, but I think it's important to reiterate this point that we need to have money as we grow older. Some amount of money, even if they are earning a slightly lesser return, need to be kept in places that are accessible to us when we need it. I'm sure our children will give us, but the first point of contact should be where we can access ourselves. That's the whole idea. I want to talk about if the eighth point is about insurances. Many a time we come across cases where people aren't digitally savvy, so they need to ensure that they pay premiums, especially health insurance premiums need to be paid on the due date. If you don't pay on the due date and within the grace time, the policy gets lapsed and you lose the advantage. So in all these cases, there is a simple process of making it auto debit, which means on the due date, the insurance premium will hit your account and get debited from your account, and ensure that all your insurance policies are current and updated. These are very, very simple steps, my friend. I'm sure you already are doing this, but I can tell you that in the 1 in 1,000 cases where something like this has not been done, it creates a whole lot of problems for the person. And I'm here to just mention and bring this point so that you take double care on making sure these things are taken care of. There's a gentleman called Vijaypat Singhania who was the managing director of the chairman of Raymond Limited, and he has written a book where he had transferred assets to his son, and because of which his son at some point in time had kind of left him all on his own. So he wrote very emphatically, he speaks very emphatically on that subject now, that as long as we are in good health and good shape, our assets need to work for us. And I too truly believe in that philosophy that your wealth is your power, your right, your respect. So do not give it away in your lifetime. And many people have this thing that since, especially if there is a single person and they are dependent on their children, there is a tendency sometimes to transfer all of it so that the son or daughter may use it the way they want it. I have a different view. I believe you must hold on to your wealth. I am sure your children are great people, but I think it's important to keep wealth with you. And of course, pass it on to them after your time. Absolutely no two ways about it. But in your lifetime, it must work for you. That's very, very important. Last but not the least, every elder must have a simple will that they need to write. And the writing of a will is a simple process. You just need a white paper and you need to write your thoughts about where all your investments and assets need to go to, who all it needs to go to. And it must be attested by two people, two independent people who are not your relatives and so on. It can be your friends. Two people attest it, hold it, keep it, so that if it's accessed after your time, it can be kind of ensured that your assets go to respective people. So it's a simple process. Of course, you can get a legal person to write it as well, but a simple bill will simplify the whole process. And more importantly, if you can kind of give your next of kith and kin the heads up as to how you are kind of divvying your assets after your time, it makes that process even more kind of easy to handle. So I would urge you to look at this aspect as well. If you've already done, great. Otherwise, just think about it. There are ways and means of getting this done quite easily if you're not able to do it by yourself. But this will have a good way in which your assets transition to the next generation, so to say. Friends, these are the 10 points. I'm sure none of these 10 points are new to you. I'm sure you already know this. But I see time and again that somewhere somebody is missed out on some aspect and they go through a lot of pain in trying to set these things. So I thought it's important to bring these 10 very fundamental aspects of management of money, especially for senior citizens and the elderly. Now, I'm coming to the second part where I'm going to talk about three important principles of what I understand. These are not numbers, these are not bright new ideas, but I'm going to talk to you briefly about how to manage your investments, especially in this phase of life, right? And I think it's relevant. First up, you know, everything needs a plan, and it's important as people elder as well. You have a plan when you are young and you're trying to grow into your next phase of life. You need a plan of action, especially on your career. You need a plan of action for how you're going to invest your savings, etc., etc. Similarly, as an elder, you also need to have a plan. That plan can be you're going to invest in A, B, C, D, E, F, and these avenues. It can be a fixed deposit, it can be senior citizen savings scheme, it can be a post office investment, it can be a mutual fund, whatever be it. You must have a plan and how that plan is going to generate a cash flow for you and how you're going to live your life. This basic plan, it's not rocket science, but this needs to be in place and you need to follow through judiciously on that, right? So if, as an example, your plan gives you a cash flow of say 50,000 rupees or a lakh of rupees a month, then you need to make sure that you're living your life as per the resources that is available at that point in time. So a basic thing is a plan. People who don't have this plan on paper in some form are people who are always anxious. So it makes sense to commit a plan on paper in some form that you know where your investments are, you know how that investment is going to generate a certain amount of cash flow for you and how you're going to live your life month on month. Very, very important. This is more to avoid that I find relating to money where many elders seem to have that interest rates are going down. I have no idea. Please commit it to paper as a plan, and I'm sure you will be much better off and you will have answers to your questions in a much better way than by just keeping it in your mind. So, my first advice to you would be to commit to a plan. Second is that it's extremely important to, health is a very important part of, the elderly, right? Anything that you enter into a hospital, we all know that it costs a fortune. Uh, but there are ways in which we can avoid this by making sure that our health is covered well early. When you cover your health early, you get a reasonably large cover at a much lower cost. And as long as you're able to continue to kind of renew that premium, that cover continues on. So ensure your health and life risks are well covered. And this is an important part. I certainly don't recommend people after 60, 65 to take a new life insurance cover, which is also the something which I'm noticing. Some of my banking friends are very eager to sell insurance to anybody and everybody walking on the street. As an elder person, you must evaluate if you need life insurance after 65. Health insurance you need, but life insurance is needed only if you continue to generate a certain earnings as a person who would do in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, when you have dependents and those dependents, you're earning for them, then there is a need for life insurance. By the time you're 65 and beyond, I'm sure you have created a corpus and your dependents have become independent in some form. So really the need for life insurance goes down quite dramatically at that point in time. So I would urge you to evaluate your life insurance if you need to take any at that point in time. My answer in most cases has been no, you don't need to take life insurance after a certain age, maybe 60, 65 upwards, because you're not actively working and earning a living. But a health insurance is a must. So just ensure that your health insurance is in place. But whatever life insurance you have taken earlier, make sure that you're continuing to pay the premium and keeping it active. And it's very, very important to kind of keep both of these going. One of the questions that I commonly get asked as a senior citizen is, should I take risk? Right? And it's a question with no easy answer, my friend, because today a bank deposit is yielding you a 5 or a 5.5% interest. And if you consider inflation, say at 4% or 4.5%, there's hardly anything to grow by. So your money needs to grow. So there is a certain need for everybody to take a certain amount of risk as well. Now, how much of risk that one needs to take, that one is comfortable with, right? It's not about taking a risk, but it's being comfortable in taking that risk. So and like I said, there is no easy answer, but I would say it's okay for senior citizens to take some risk. How much is that risk? Should you invest 25% of your money in equity mutual funds? As an example, I'm just giving you an example. Or should that number be 40%? Should that number be 50%? Entirely depends on each of your temperament. Some of us have great temperament to take great risks. Some of them don't have that temperament. So go with what you're comfortable with. Don't go because somebody else is doing something. Be very comfortable with what risk you're willing to take. Now, some of these mutual funds promise the earth, but understand that they come with their own risk of, equity especially goes up and goes down. There's great risks if you consider long term, but in the short term, they can be very, very volatile, like what we see in the stock market now. So take how much of it that is relevant to your need, relevant to your temperament, and use it judiciously. That's how I would say. Because at the end, it's not just about earning a better income or a return. It's also about being comfortable in your mind, my friend. Because at the end, when we kind of are in that, silver age, as Silver Talkies intends to kind of call, we shouldn't be worrying about stuff that shouldn't be our bother. So I think, but having said that, interest rates are low. I think it's important to look at somewhere where one can generate a much higher return than what you get in the bank. Some of the mutual funds which combine equity and debt, these are called hybrid funds, may be good places for you, especially if you have a 3 to 5 year kind of a outlook. These can certainly generate about 8 to 9% for patient investors as compared to the 5.5% that a bank deposit can offer. But like I said, when you take an asset which has a certain amount of equity in it, it tends to be a little volatile. So you need to kind of have the mind for it, have the kind of appetite for it. And if you have that, then go with that. That would be my thing. So these three things, my friend, have a plan in place. Very, very important to avoid anxiety. Have your health and risk covered in terms of insurances. And last, it's okay to take some risky investments, a small portion at least of your investment, so that you generate a slightly higher return that can provide you, your money can kind of stretch a little bit more for a much longer period of time. So these are three core principles on investing that I think elders need to kind of imbibe into their financial daily life. I'm not going into specific because that's an ocean and that can take all evening and tomorrow as well. So if there are Nidhi said, if there are questions, I'm happy to take it, even specifics after my presentation. Now, coming to the last part, my friends, there are, there are often people come up to me and say, why should one needs to look at, a retirement home? Should I invest in one at all? Right? And there are a variety of reasons. I'm going to talk about four reasons here, but I'm also going to give you a financial reason at the end. Of course, when we are young, we need larger places. We have multiple people, we have children, we have dependents with us, so on and so forth. As we grow older, children go out, we become empty nesters. The need for a large space comes down. Large space, instead of being an asset, starts being a liability. I know enough elders who have great difficulty managing assets which are large, and they are unable to find cleaners, they are unable to find people to keep the place tidy and clean and neat, find helpers. All of that starts becoming a challenge because as a senior citizen, your need for space comes down quite dramatically as compared to being younger. So it makes sense to start looking out for a retirement home at that point in time. Second, if you are beyond the active life, then why must you be in the heart of the city where the traffic is high, the place is polluted, and people are always in a hurry? You can move over to a place which is more calm, which is less stress, and which gives you the quality of life that you deserve in your later years. So that's the other thing. Some of my clients who live in some of these communities that I know of have some fantastic advantages that I know of. Their medical doctor comes to them and visits them in 5 minutes within the community. If the elders don't want to kind of cook in a given day, they can kind of just order it from the central kitchen in that community. So this elderly community that seems to have come up in a variety of places is serving a great need for some of these people and some of this thing. And I was quite astounded when I saw some of these, and I said, wow, may not be a bad idea for people to kind of think. And last but not the least, uh, when you stay in the city in the midst of people who have different lifestyles, you don't have time, they don't have time for you in some sense. Whereas in an elder community, I've often found that you're living among peers. So you have friends who are very similar to you, who are also retired. Your lifestyles are very similar, your tastes are very similar. So you have a lot of things to share in common. So it makes a lot of sense for one to look at these as aspects that one needs to go for a retirement home. But one financial argument that I want to leave behind before I leave this, right? So there is a concept which helps elderly people generate cash flow as they grow older, and this is called reverse mortgage. When we are younger and we want to buy a property to live, we get into what is called a mortgage, which means that you are buying the house, you're giving that house as a security to a bank, and the bank, and then you pay the EMI month on month to the banker, right? As you grow older, and if you have a large asset that you don't need, but you need cash flow, let's say, for some reason, you have the option of doing what is called a reverse mortgage. In which case, for the next 20 years, the banker will assess your property and be happy to give you a certain cash flow on month basis that can happily either augment your cash flow or sustain you if needed. So, in both cases, that's a very powerful way you can get even a real estate that you have to kind of help you financially lead a very, very fulfilling life. So I thought these are important reasons why one must think about investing in a retirement home and go with that. So, like I mentioned, I'm come to the end of my presentation. I'm completely short of time. Happy to kind of take specific questions if you have, and if you put it on the chat, very, very happy to do that. Once again, thank you to Silver Talkies and Primus for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts and look forward, and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Babu. Looking at the comments and based on what I just heard, I think you presented some very pertinent points and very successfully put them out there. Very important points in terms of, we have heard this from our lawyer also in a previous session who was here to speak about wills, right? That how important it is to not actually give away your property to your kids while you're alive. Please hold on to it. You can definitely write a will and hand it over to them. So I think some of the points were really lovely. So thank you so much. But before we get into the question answer session, I would ask Nihas to talk to us about the Primus projects. And then after that, we will get into the Q&A. That's okay, right, Babu? Okay, wonderful. Hi, Nihas, welcome.
Hey, hi, Nidhi.
Hi,
very
how
good
are you
evening.
doing? Good evening.
Doing well. How are you?
Very well. As you can see, I think Babu did touch a chord with people regarding retirement homes. I saw a question where somebody asked, can you suggest any retirement homes where medical health is available and food is available? So I think that's the right spot where I bring you in and you can talk to us about Primus and tell us about the projects and give us a little bit detail about, what retirement living communities are actually about and how does Primus really come into this space and what are the different projects or options which cities are available with Primus, right?
Absolutely, Nidhi. I will do that and I'll take it from here. So firstly, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I guess there couldn't have been a more relevant time to kind of touch upon the topic of senior living or retirement homes, right? Any which way that we want to put it. Now, firstly, to just give you a little bit more of an idea what Primus does. Okay, we've been in this segment for almost about a decade now. All right. So for about a decade, we've been catering to the needs of seniors by virtue of having them live in senior living communities where we have a bunch of curated services which we manage professionally. Okay, so any of these communities that we have are pretty much equivalent to what it would be like if a senior were to go purchase an apartment anywhere, except for the fact that all the services would be offered at the doorstep in our communities. Now, because I mentioned some amount of real estate here, I do not want any one of you to get confused into thinking that Primus is a real estate player or is a builder. In fact, that is one thing we are absolutely not. Okay, we are a senior care service provider. Incidentally, the mechanism of providing services is such that at some level, we have to be involved in real estate because we need to construct a community, construct a building to enable all of these services for any of you. So at this point of time, we are very relevant in Bangalore. About 2 communities in the works at this point of time. One, in fact, has been operational for about a good 2.5-3 years, and 2 more communities in the works. One is a community off Sarjapura Road, close to Harloor Road, if anybody is very familiar with the geography here in Bangalore. So that's where one of our properties is, and then we are spreading our wings into North Bangalore and all of that. So we're going to be closer to the airport for people who think that is going to be more convenient. We've, of course, spread our wings into the next largest metro in the southern part of India, and that's Chennai. So we do have a project somewhere very close to the Sholingnallur junction off of OMR. So it's a project wherein we've tied up with a builder by name Bolaneni Zion, somebody who's quite relevant and has a very good reputation in those neck of the woods. So we've done that. We are in Chennai, and as I said, we are in Bangalore as well. We cater to a very wide segment of the market. We have our apartments which range all the way from as less as about 45 to 46 lakhs, and they go all the way up to about maybe 1.15, 1.2 crores. So depending on your needs and depending upon the areas in which, or cities for that matter, where these projects are located, you could suit yourself, right? And no matter any which project that you get into, something that comes by default is the fact that we take care of literally everything from housekeeping to your entertainment needs to offering you concierge services, which are basically like handyman services. Your medical care is taken care of, and your food is taken care of. Nutritious means 3 times a day, beverages, snacks, be it anything, right? It's the equivalent of living in homes where you were living all this while, but with the added convenience where all of these services are managed professionally. So you can actually retire in the true sense. Retiring from a job is one thing. I think that's way more easier, but retiring from actually managing a household is something that never really happens. We just expend so much energy doing this, even when we are maybe not at our physical best. So that is where we come in. People move in with us. Of course, as Mr. Babu, I think, put it quite beautifully, those 4 or 5 points that he had. I'm not going to touch upon those again because you've heard from him. But yes, providing the right size of accommodation, providing the right geographic area where you're away from pollution, right? And you're breathing much cleaner air, providing nutritious meals, just catering to the need of senior citizens in terms of avoiding loneliness, having a like-minded community, having people who've walked similar paths surround them. So your routine is a little more fruitful than mechanical, as it often turns out beyond a particular age, is where I think we're really able to come in and create a difference. So I'll keep it short here because we're constrained by time. But then through Nidhi, you can feel free to reach out to Primus, and should you have the need, we'll be more than happy to help you out. And of course, I do see a few things popping up in the chat box.
Yeah, Nihas, maybe we can just quickly answer that. Yeah, just answer that quickly. The project in North Bangalore, by when and where is it available?
So the project in North Bangalore is something that's kicking off over the period of the next 4 to 6 months. But then the availability in terms of getting possession is going to be over the course of maybe the next 3.5 years. So somewhere around 2025 is one when could roughly the time where you could expect to move into that property at the end of 2025. If somebody wants something ready, we have one on Kanakpura Road, which is in South Bangalore, and I have another one off Sarjapura Road, which will be ready in about, say, 6 to 7 months from now. So worst case, let's say by the end of the year, one could move in. Chennai is somewhere around 2024 is when you could move into the project in Chennai. We'll shortly be coming up with some projects in Hyderabad and Calcutta as well. And no, we are not in Mumbai at this point of time because I just saw that pop up.
Yeah, and are your pets pet friendly? Are your homes pet friendly?
Absolutely, they are. All we request is the pets are taken care of. The common areas are, cleaned up ideally. Although we have our teams catering to that, so it's not that much of a hassle as it is in, multi-generational communities. But yes, we wouldn't discriminate on the basis of pets. You're more than welcome to carry everything that you've carried for all your life into your senior living days. You don't have to give up on anything.
So Nihas, about the Kanakpura project, Primus Reflection, is there still availability? If somebody is interested, can they get in touch?
Yes, Nidhi, there's very minor availability at this point of time. We don't have too much. So if the need is for the Kanakpura Road project, then I would say it's better if the concerned person would reach out to us quick. Other projects, yes, we do have a fair amount of availability, but Kanakpura Road at this point of time, yes, I do have availability, but it's not likely to last for more than about this financial year end, which is about 45 days away, 55 days away, in fact.
Okay. No, in fact, I see a lot of questions coming up where people want to know about specific projects. So for all those who want to get into further details, at the end of this session, we would be sending out an email to all of you asking if you would like to get in touch with Primus or with Finsherpa for your investment needs or investment consultation and about these projects. So once you let us know that you want us to get you connected, we will make those connections. I think answering specific questions about each project in detail is really not viable right now. So we will roll out that email right after this session, and then you can let us know and we'll get you connected. Thank you, Nihas. Thank you so much.
Sounds good, Nidhi. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Okay, back to you, Babu. So there were a few questions which came up while you were making the presentation. I will take them up one by one now. The first question which came up was from Mr. Tyagarajan. He asked, are there any tax implications if accounts are held in joint names and both the holders are IT assessees?
There is no tax implication for the second holder. The tax implication is always on the first holder. So any interest, dividend, or capital gain on any of the investments where there is a joint holding, the implications are only on the first holder, not on the second holder.
I do, I do remember you talking about risk, how much a person should take, and it's entirely one's choice. But there is a question which has been asked: what percentage of one, a non-pensioner's total assets should be invested in equity? Is there a
no? There is a thumb rule. Let me kind of first address the thumb rule. So normally the thumb rule is that 100 minus your age should be your equity investments, because equity is a risky asset. So going by that, if you're a 25-year-old person, then 75% of your money needs to go into equity, because your runway is very long, and hopefully that equity investment will pay up over a period of time. Right? As you get older, and let's say you're 75, therefore 100 minus 75, 25% of your assets must be in, risky assets, so to say. So broadly, I think this is the way one should look at. But I would not like to impose this as something that one needs to do all the time. So I've come across people who are 70, 80, who have 60, 70% of their money in equity. And I've also come across much younger people who don't want to take equity risk. So it's entirely up to them. The only thing where I think I would urge people to relook is that they don't want to take any risk at all. Right? I don't understand this. I don't want to take any risk at all. There, I think you need to think through a little bit more, because given that safe investments will continue to yield very low, you need to take some risk. Take as much as you think you can. Like I said, 20-25% is a good number, and there is no need that you must do it on day one. Start with a number, could be 3%, 5%, 10%, and then build it over the next 5 years. And hopefully during that course, if you're curious, you will also understand more about it. So you become more confident and then kind of reach it. That would be the way to go.
Okay, wonderful. I love the thumb rule. I think that's easy to remember, 100 minus age. Lovely. Okay, now this is a question which is a topic in itself. So I'm not sure how much can you delve into it. Somebody has asked how to write a will.
See, will writing is the simplest thing, if you ask me. All you need to do is that you need to just write out a simple note, and ideally start with, say, I, Babu Krishnamoorthy of sound mind, do write out the following will, and then say, this is what I would like to leave to this person, this person, this person, or vice versa. You can create what you want to give to each person as annexure, and say, I want to give annexure A to my son, so-and-so, annexure B to my daughter, annexure C to my thing, so on and so forth, and then close it off. Sign at the back or wherever it ends, and then get two people to witness. Two independent people who are not your wife or your relative or so on. Suppose two people who have nothing to do with you. They could be your friends, but they're not blood relations, so to say. As long as they sign, and this is kept with the third person, to be invoked at the time when you are not there is the idea of a will. So there is no need for you to write it. Many people ask me, should I, write it in a stamp paper? Should I do? No, you can write it on a plain piece of paper. Only thing you need to sign it, and it must have two witnesses. Right? This, having said this, if you are uncomfortable, any legal person will easily do it for you. Absolutely no problem. But first, like I said, the more difficult thing than writing the will is deciding what you want to give to whom, right? And that's important. And many cases, I also tell people that if you have large assets, it makes sense to kind of tell people, may not be directly, but in some sense, make it known to them that in some sense, some of these assets will come to this person and some of the assets to that person, because in your lifetime, you can set people at rest as far as the thought process. Otherwise, sometimes when people don't know this and later some asset goes somewhere, they, children, can take this very badly. And I've seen one or two, not too many, but people. But so writing a will is simple, and you can also get it registered if you want to. Different states have different registration charges. It's a very small nominal amount. The registration kind of increases the authenticity of this documentation, especially if you are a large asset holder. It makes sense to kind of get it legally vetted and kind of registered as well. Would make sure that it passes the rule in the court if it is challenged later. So those would be my thoughts. Does that answer the question, maybe?
It surely does. And I would just like to let people know who are attending here today that Silver Talkies does work with senior advocate Mr. Shiv Kumar, who's associated with the Karnataka High Court. So if you need any professional help with writing a legally sane will, you can reach out to Silver Talkies and we'll make that connection and he can help you out with the will writing process. Okay, coming to the next question, Vijay Lakshmi asked, I think it's a question which many seniors would have on their mind. What are some ways by which we can reduce expenses incurred due to medical issues? Because most seniors do have a lot of medical related expenses, be it physiotherapy or diagnostics, right? Are there any insurance packages that cover for outpatient expenses? That's the second part of the question. And the third part is, are there any tax deductions available for these expenses?
So I am not, so some hospitals now are offering some form of an insurance in terms of providing a certain amount of reimbursement and a lower cost for outpatient treatments. I know some hospitals do, but I don't know this area very well. From a taxation perspective or a tax deduction perspective, there isn't any. These do not come under Section 80D, which is the usual Mediclaim kind of a benefit. So these will not, at this point in time, get the tax benefit. But some select hospitals are offering schemes, but there is no insurance company that's coming up and offering these as we speak now. So that would be mine. And I don't know this area very much. Let me be honest on this.
All right, fair point. Shalini is asking a follow-up question with regards to will. She's asking, is it necessary or suggested that one should register the will?
Like I mentioned, if you have a lot of assets and you believe that there is a possibility that the dependents may kind of have an issue, makes sense to register it in advance, right? But if your dependents are in perfect harmony and you don't believe and you have communicated in some form to them about who gets what and so on and so forth, then I don't think you need to register.
Okay. Raymond's asking, any suggestions to manage online accounts better?
I struggle with them, guys. So I can only empathize with you. I keep missing out passwords of banks, forgot passwords, and nowadays you get this additional OTP as well, which you need to kind of type. So it is a challenge. Unfortunately, I have not sorted this myself. I'm a little younger than you, not too young, so please bear with me.
Okay. Veena is asking, can there be a joint investment in PMVVY, the Pradhan Mantri Yojana?
Yes. So Pradhan Mantri Vayu Vandana Yojana as a product, you will need to nominate. It's done through life insurance, and you will need to nominate somebody. So definitely there is a benefit. There is a beneficiary there that gets taken care of in that sense. So uh, uh, it it does have the element of either a second holder or a nomination in place for that purpose.
Oh, wonderful. Rukmini's question is it advisable to hold mutual funds in Dmat form and hold a nomination in account, or have direct folios with fund houses?
Both are the same. Both are pretty much the same. There isn't much of a difference. If you already hold a Dmat account and you want to hold mutual funds within that, see, mutual funds don't necessarily need to be Dmated. The difference between a mutual fund and a share is that a share in the earlier days used to be a physical certificate. And if you lost that certificate, then that certificate had to be replaced. And there was a huge problem with that. You had to file a police case and, create documentation and so on and so forth. Whereas a mutual fund is only a statement of account. So if you kind of if that statement of account got destroyed, you can just ask for another statement. You're actually not, it's not a certificate, so to say. That's what I mean. So mutual funds do not need to be dematted. But if you have a demat and you want to use the demat to hold your shares as well as your mutual funds, absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem.
Okay. Rina wants to know, can we write a part of our wealth to non-relatives like staff or domestic maids, etc.?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can. You can. Just make sure that your dependents are aware in some sense and, kind of are in sync with some of your thoughts.
Right. Kamla wants to know a little bit more about reverse mortgages. I'm also very curious, how prevalent or how successful have reverse mortgages been in India, really? Are there many active offerings, many active products?
See, reverse mortgage is about a decade old in India. So we've not heard much about it, but I can tell you that it will become more and more prevalent as we go along. It's a concept that's well and tested in the Western world, but it's not so in India. The example, like I said, is that when you're say 40 years of age or 30 years of age and you want to buy a property and you identified a 1 crore property that you want to buy, you go to a bank, you put up 25 lakhs of your money and 75 lakhs you take as a loan, and the bank gives you an EMI that's about 75,000 or 1 lakh a month, right? So you pay that over the next 15, 20 years, and then you possess that property. Now, when you retire and you have a large asset and you want to generate a certain amount of cash flow, there is no need for you to actually sell that property or kind of completely do away with where you're staying or where you're staying. You can generate it by staying there and doing a reverse mortgage as well. If you did, that asset will continue to be in your place. And the other advantage is selling it means that asset goes out of your system. Whereas reverse mortgage means that asset continues to remain in your possession, but only thing you get as cash flow. So as an example, the bank, once you apply for a reverse mortgage, the bank will come and do an evaluation, and they will also, kind of check, say whether you want a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year mortgage, right? Reverse mortgage, based on which they will determine a certain cash flow that will keep coming to you on a month-on-month basis or a quarterly basis or an annual basis, depending on how you want that cash flow to happen, right? Now, let's say after a certain point in time, after your time, this property with the amount that you've already drawn together with the interest will get subtracted, and the balance of the property, either your dependents can pay the money and possess the property, or can instruct the financial institution or the bank to sell the property, realize their money, as well as pay whatever is balanced to the dependents. Now, as I said, in the last 10 years, this has been prevalent, this has existed. But Indians by nature, we are attached to our property as we are to our, friends and relatives, right? So we have not caught on to this idea as much as the Western world has. So I'm sure going forward, we will kind of see more adoption in this. But as we speak now, it is a little less adopted.
Wonderful. So Reena has a related question regarding reverse mortgages. She's asking, can you shed some light on the costs involved for reverse mortgages?
See, just as a mortgage involves a certain cost of 7 to 8%, reverse mortgage also has a cost. The bank or the financial institution obviously is not doing this for free. So there is an earning that the bank makes out of this. There is a certain amount of assessment they do about the longevity of how much they are going to do for what period of time, so on and so forth, based on which they arrive at a certain interest rate. I don't know the exact interest rate, but I do know that it will be in the range of about 8-9% and not more than that.
Okay. I'll just read out Mr. Yashpal Mehta's comment because it's relevant to the question which Vijay Lakshmi had asked earlier around outpatient expenses. He mentions that he had claimed deduction for outpatient expenses and it did go through with the tax department. Just for everybody's knowledge, yeah. Okay, Rukmini has another question. She wants to know, considering net present value of money and the lifespan, what in your opinion could be a minimum safe annual return?
I didn't get you. Can you please repeat the question?
Rukmini, I am not sure I understood that question clearly. Can you unmute yourself and ask that question, please?
Yeah, what I meant is, since because of inflation and also the value of money depreciating, so what could be a safe return on the investment which we should look for, considering that there is not going to be any increase in income? Say I live for another 20-30 years. So I just want to know, because this purchasing value of money is going to depreciate. So I would like to know what is the minimum rate of return which I should look for today.
So generally, the rule of thumb that we look at when we are planning long-term cash flows for people is a 2% additional to inflation. So if I were to assume that inflation is say 4 or 5%, then the amount that one needs to aim for to get over long term is somewhere in the region of if it is 6 to 7% is what one needs to aim for. And the reason is very simple: is that along with your life, as your life grows, your corpus also in some sense needs to grow in a smaller way. Maybe not in the same context. Your corpus also needs to grow, because 20 years down the line, you need to have slightly larger corpus to keep generating the same return. So I would say at least a 2% or 2.5% higher than inflation should be what it is. I generally go by the bank rate as an inflation rate, because in my reckoning, what I have understood is that there is no benchmark to understand what inflation is. So typically, a 1-year bank deposit could be a good benchmark for all of us to easily keep as in mind. So if you take that in today's context, then I would say your investments must generate a net of tax return of at least a 7% return, if 5% is what you consider as a thing. So that, it continues to augment your capital in a small way and grow.
Okay, wonderful. Jesse wants to know, if a will is not registered, is there any hassle to sell the property by the legal heir? Will they face any issues later?
See, as soon as somebody passes away, the next of the kin need to probate that will, and when they probate that will, the will gets legal rights, and based on the probate from the court, one can change the sell the property or change the ownership of the property to whoever was mentioned in the will. So in normal cases, there is absolutely no issues on this. Is a normal process that happens all through for everybody, right? The only issue will come if somebody contests among the dependents. Somebody contests on the originality of the will. or they come up with another will that which they claim to be original, right? So these are issues, which is why if you believe that there could be an issue after your time or after the person's time, that there could be a dispute on such things, better to kind of register the will. If you don't believe so, and if the if the dependents are well informed and not so kind of thing, then I don't think. I hope I've answered that question. There is no necessity to register the will. Let me put it that way.
Right. And Vijay Lakshmi also has a will-related question. She's asking, if I want to leave my wealth to a trust, can I do that?
Absolutely. You can give. You can will your assets to anybody. You feel like, including an individual or an institution or a trust or anything. As it's all within your means to kind of thing. Just that you need to kind of, if you intend to do it in some sense, you must make sure that they are aware that you mentioned their name there, because somebody who is going to execute that will needs to get in touch and keep them informed and pass on. The role of an executive who is going to execute the will is extremely important, and that's it can't be. It needs to be, especially if the assets are large. It needs to be done in a very fiduciary manner. Find somebody who can kind of do it for you.
Okay. Okay, given that we are close to the end of our time, I will not be taking up any more questions relating to wills, because I think that's a very separate, independent topic in itself. So we will handle that later. I'll just have two more questions here, which I'll ask. So Vijay Lakshmi is asking, which is a more cost-effective and best, better option among staying in a luxury retirement home or own house and having several attendants to take care of, like a cook, caretaker, maids, driver, etc.? How do you address that?
Unfortunately, this is not a financial question. I am here, so do whatever feels nice to your heart, Vijay Lakshmi. That's what I can answer. There is no easy answer in this. So as you, the only thing which I think as people who are elders is, I think it's important to do what your heart wants you to do. Right? It tugs you, and that's the important part of growing old. I think you need to do what appeals to you, and that's very, very important. So if living in a luxury condo appeals to you, go for it, make it happen. But if you want to stay somewhere and get attended by people, do it your way.
Yeah,
Sorry, Nidhi, I just couldn't resist.
No, I think I agree with you. It's a very personal choice, right? Where would you like to grow old, right? Whether surrounded by people in a retirement community home where you have, people in your age group and you have these facilities available to you, or you love your house so much and everything can be taken care of there. And it's with aging in place, the house is ready to take care of you as you grow older. That's also equally important. Right. Okay, there is a question from Raymond. I'm not sure I understand it, so I'll just ask it out and you let me know if that's unclear. He's asking, should we take total superannuation and buy annuity, or take some in cash to invest and buy some annuity?
That's again a choice that each of us needs to make. Depending on what your liquidity needs are, I would take that call. Generally, what I've understood is annuities flow at about 6.5% per annum rate. So if you had a corpus that you had today, and today you're retiring and you want to put it in an immediate annuity product, and the product starts generating cash flow to you month on month, that rate would be about somewhere around 6.5%. And as you're aware, annuities are taxable annuities. So that's the rate you will get. Now, depending whether you want to put 100% of your money into something like that, or you want to take away, there is a facility called commutation that allows 33% for you to commute and take as cash. You can take it. If you are confident that you can kind of invest it elsewhere, say something like a mutual fund or an equity portfolio, and generate a much higher return than the 6%, by all means take the commutation advantage. But if you're not so sure and you don't need the cash, why not take 100% as your pension? So it's entirely a choice that there is no one size fits all in this. It's up to what you want to do.
Right. Okay, I will take one last question, given that it was a legal term that you did mention, and I think a clarification is a must. You had talked about probate while answering a question around will. So could you elaborate on what a probate is and how can one get it done, or what is the procedure? That would be the last question for today.
So when there is a will, and will is kind of mentioning an immovable property as part of that will, then it needs to get a legal sanction that it is the only will, it's a legal will, so on and so forth. So sometimes one needs to kind of get it, and this is a law that is different in different states. So I will tell you what is applicable in my understanding in Tamil Nadu is that if you need to transfer a property which is will to somebody, then it needs to be probated. You need to go to the court, apply to the court with the copy of the will, and then get the property's name changed from the deceased to the dependent whose name is mentioned in the will. Now, there are certain exemptions in this. If the will provides the property in the name of the dependents, and that is the same as the legal heirship that is available straight away, then a probate is not necessary. The transfer of property will be done based on a small fee that the registrar will charge, and use the legal heirship certificate as an additional proof. But if legal heirship certificate has different names as the legal heir, but the will is giving the property to somebody else, then a probate is advised in terms of providing a legal way in which you can get. So to answer it very simply, it is a legal seal that the court gives to the will, saying that now this will is legalized and the property, especially immovable assets, can be moved to the dependents or people who is not based on the probate.
Okay, thank you so much. Babu, just a quick clarification. I was thinking about the question which Vijay Lakshmi had asked, right? There is a lot of financial analysis that also one needs to do with regards to evaluating between a retirement home or continuing to stay in my own house, right? There can be a lot of financial analysis around it to take that call.
Absolutely. There can be, but the question that was asked was more non-financial. If a financial question was asked, then I would try and kind of, in my limited means, try and answer that. There are, like I said, there are lots of choices that one makes while you kind of evaluate between living within the city and in a city where you are dependent on attendance, so to say, as per the question that was asked. You are having to take care of their salaries and their expectations of salaries going up year on year. So over a longish period of time, you will find that you're having to incur a lot more expenses, and human cost is definitely on the high, right? Whereas in a retirement home, the services are a lot more easier because it's spread over a lot more senior people. So the services, I am guessing, would be a lot more cheaper when it's done in a retirement home as compared to when it is done in a non-retirement environment, so to say.
Yeah, and somebody else is taking care of providing those services for you rather than you having to engaging someone and verifying them. And also, yeah, so I think it's a call that you take based on convenience and financial resources, and as I said earlier, right, it's a personal choice in terms of where you want to grow older. Yeah, but Babu, it has been a brilliant session. I think it was extremely crisp, very well rounded, and so much, everybody. It was wonderful. And thank you, Babu. Thank you, Nihas. It was really wonderful to have you here. So have a good weekend, everyone.